Hey, what's going on everybody? Boilon here and back for another video on Marvel Strike Force. Now today we have a little bit of a special topic. Now this is something that I want to do maybe once every 3 or 4 months, and I want to talk about the state of the game for Marvel Strike Force. Now I want to put this up front that this is not a doom and gloom video. I'm going to be as objective as possible, and actually we're going to be talking about a lot of the positive things that have come to MSF. I do want to kind of do a broader search. I want to take a look at some of the trends, the Google trends, the YouTube search trends, things like this on Marvel Strike Force, and see how things have changed, specifically over the last 5 years since the game's been out, but also the last 1 year, and how things have kind of gone up or down. I want to take a look again at the Sensor Tower numbers, not only just for Marvel Strike Force, and I know there's going to be a little bit of grain of salt here because of the web store, but also other games in the same competitive field. So Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Raid Shadow Legends, things like that, and see where the game actually stands right now. So if you're ready to go, everybody, then let's boil this down. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers, I want to talk about some of the things that I think that the game has done really well as of late, especially over the last couple of weeks or so. Some of the changes that have come to the game that are really positive. And this has to be the increased available shards, or the increased character shards in all the stores and the nodes. So you guys might know that in Blitz Store, not only are some of the characters, quite available now. I don't know if has it changed. Yeah, so some of the more commoner characters, have been bumped up on their shard count to 10 for 500. I guess it's past Morbius, so Silver Samurai and onwards down here. You can get them all for 10 shards, which is pretty good. And they basically, I think, eliminated the Blitz Orbs special characters, and now you can buy them directly out of the Blitz store. So if you have Blitz Orbs, you can go ahead and open them, but otherwise you can also buy the characters directly, like Gwenpool and Iron Fist, when they added them in. In the raid stores, we have, again, 10 for 2,800. You can get 20 shards for 2,800 for some of the more common characters, and there's a lot more slots now, more than ever before. This has been really great, and it's really expedited the way the characters can get shards for these older characters, especially if you're a new player. Now, I know there's a lot of work still to do in the sort of the new player experience, but I think that this has really done wonders for basically everyone, I think. The Arena store as well, they've kind of done that, and they've kind of eliminated the need to have to open the Arena Orb for those characters, so Star-Lord, Annihilation, and Agent Venom, directly into the Arena store, so you can buy them there. As far as so they do 10 for 500 now. I think they could have done a little bit better, because they haven't. It's been a long time since they've updated any of these things, but it is what it is. And for War Store, again, increased shards. You have 20 shards for some characters for 2,000 points, so that's really great there. The only thing is the Cosmic Crucible store, which I guess I need to buy here. So it's still roughly, we have some premium prices now for Beta Ray and Quicksilver at 5 for 750. But they haven't really done any major changes to like 10 for this here, and that's something that I would have liked to see. But other than that, we're also getting double shards in the campaigns too, as you guys know, and that's been a huge improvement. So you're getting 4 per hit rather than 2, and I think it's also increased the chances as well. So normally per day, I would get like any 12 is pretty common, honestly, for a shard farm that I would get anywhere from 8 to 12 a day. So that's a huge increase before, where it was like, I don't know, sometimes 2, sometimes 4. Right, so I think it's really increased the speed of which when a character goes onto a node, that I can actually get them to 7 stars. So that part's great. The second thing that I want to talk about, and this is actually pretty new, this just came in the other day with the Stark Grant event, is that now we've kind of turned into, okay, so yeah, I've maxed my rotations here today, but so they've turned the blitz rotations to 1-hour blitzes. And personally, I think that this is a huge improvement. I think that this helps people. If you were going to do those 8 rotations anyways, now you can do it. If you have the time anyways, you can space it out every hour or so if you can do so. But I think it's still better than 2-hour rotations, because that inevitably will, for some people, impact their sleep schedule. And like myself, it did on occasion, and now I can get all my 8 rotations in throughout my regular day, and I don't have to do that, right? So I can get them in when I want to do that. So I do like this. It's supposed to be running until the end of the year. I really hope they just make this permanent flat out, because I think that there's more people who want this. I don't know why people wouldn't want that. I think there's a lot of people that are concerned that maybe this might, this might make people have to blitz for 8 rotations permanently. Like the event milestone might require you to do that. So far, it's not been like that though. So we'll wait and see until when that happens. But otherwise, I think these are solid quality of life improvements for the game. Let me know if I missed something. I mean, there's probably other good stuff too, like the gold, the increase of gold in the war season. So that's been roughly doubled, maybe a little bit more than doubled actually. I'm going from 5 million to I think 12 million every 2 weeks. So that's a pretty big improvement too. Let me know. Otherwise, glad to talk about more things. I just wanted to put this up front before we start talking about the nitty gritty of the numbers. So Marvel Strike Force though. This is Google Trends. I don't use this that often, and I think it's quite interesting because this is a worldwide Google Trends search for the past 5 years for the term Marvel Strike Force. Now, I am assuming that's probably the most, that's what we should be looking at, not MSF, which might be, misconstrued. So Marvel Strike Force seems pretty normal. So let's look at the interest over time here. Now this starts over at late 2018. So the game did come out in like March of 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not right at the beginning. But you can see the number. So if you're looking at these numbers in the middle of the screen here, what that represents is like basically a 100 is like the maximum peak Marvel Strike Force in terms of the search engine. And then everything else is like a percentage of that. So as far as the peak for 100, it's actually somewhere around December 2022, which I find funny. So I guess this was like Death Seed is what I think, right? This was around the winter of last year. We had Death Seed and Archangel. I'm kind of surprised that as far as the Google search trends go, that's actually the peak Marvel Strike Force and not some other time. Like, I don't know, Apocalypse, which would be March, right? Somewhere around here, which you can see a drop off. But what I find most interesting actually is essentially from here, from January 2022, there was this kind of like, it was kind of stable. It was stable, but like there was a huge increase, a huge uptick here in March of 2022. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the reveal of Apocalypse. Apocalypse was revealed, right? At the same time when they revealed Morgan Le Fay, like the whole saga of the Horseman saga. This was revealed then, and I think that's probably the peak that we saw here, which got a lot of like increased attention around this time, and especially this entire year of 2022, where we saw the Horseman saga. I think this was quite popular for a while until we got the final message that Apocalypse would require 23 characters in order to gear up at gear tier 17 and all that stuff, blue 5 ions and whatever, blue 4 5 ions to unlock them. And then maybe there was a little bit of a dip after, I don't know. But things were going pretty good here. So we're in a pretty good state as far as the interest in, according to Google Trends and the internet. So that's good to know. Let's take a look at over the last 1 year. This is a little bit different as well. So peak, according to their 100, would be like here again, December of 2022, and everything's just relative to that. So we can kind of just truck along. Yeah, it's not as peak as that. We're down about 20% or so. In some cases, about 30%. We're in the 60s now. So it has gone up again in October. This was a couple of weeks ago. This might have been the changes that we were talking about at the beginning of the video, honestly. And so we're kind of back in that sort of 80 to 70 to 80 kind of figure range, which is actually pretty good. What that means is that basically the game was kind of stagnant for a little while. It was a little bit underappreciated, and then I think it kind of rallied a little bit, which is kind of really good to know. That especially in this period here, the 60s period, the low 60s, and then it rallied back up again. So this was the over this past year. Now, this is the past 5 years on Marvel Strike Force for YouTube searches. Now, this one seems a little bit anomalous. This is May 2019. This was the 100 mark. So everything's relative to that point. And I don't know like what happened. I don't remember what happened then, why that would be a peak, if that's true, but everything's kind of relative to that. And I think it kind of skewed the numbers as far as this YouTube search trend goes, because now everything's like in the 40s, 30s, 40s. Sometimes it peaks a little bit here, October 2020. Obviously during COVID, the numbers are going to should be a little bit higher, 40s, 30s, which is interesting because that sounds pretty low in general. But let's kind of go on to sort of where we are right now in the last 1 year. That might be a better indication anyways. So over the past 12 months on YouTube, that we have a peak of, for whatever reason, October, we have 100, again, the same period that we saw on the Google search trends. So I don't know what specific blog post this was. Maybe this was the MSF PV thing or something related to the change in the character farmability and the shards, things like that. I don't know. But that's what is all benched at, and the rest is kind of relative to that. This is the, again, YouTube search for the last year. So you can kind of see how things were kind of, and I'll admit that from a YouTube perspective, from a content creator perspective, things were better. You know, there was more people watching, more players engaged in the YouTube scene of Marvel Strike Force around this time last year. I can say that, you know, on average, my videos were getting around 8 to 10,000 views. Good videos were hovering around 12 to 15,000, you know, this time last year. And so now I'm willing to admit that, you know, average videos are kind of probably around 4 to 7,000, and a good video is like 10,000. So there's definitely been a decrease overall in the player base. You could say it's about me because I suck or whatever, but these are just kind of the trends that I've noticed. For myself in particular, and I think others that cover this game as well. So there was a decline. I mean, this is the YouTube search decline, you know, so if you talk about December of last year, it's about 70 to 78 or so, and then now we're like in the 60s, sometimes it's dipping lower, honestly. What is this? August, September, like the summertime, this was not very good. This was like in the 40s, maybe 50s, you know, it wasn't super high around that time, so the interest level has gone down. So that's Marvel Strike Force in a nutshell, basically on Google and YouTube. As far as the revenue goes, now this is Scopely iOS that I want to take a look at, and holy shit, you know, Monopoly Go, just the beast of Scopely coming at us with 44 million on iOS alone and 4 million downloads last month. That's just absolutely insane, right? They don't have a web store, but that's insane. I've been saying this for a long time, and it's been pretty stable around these numbers for the last couple of months. It's just absolute insane what Monopoly Go is doing. Anyways, we have Marvel Strike Force here on iOS for $3 million and 90,000 downloads on iOS. On Android, we have 3 million as well, but 600,000 downloads. This is interesting. Maybe this is the huge increase of downloads that people do via emulator. Not entirely sure. You know, you might have seen the Twitch, these Twitch ad sponsor things that other people do for Marvel Strike Force, and it's just a huge, significant increase of numbers of Androids. I guess there's more devices as well for Androids, but it seems like iOS people spend more money, at least. So now what I would say is that I would take this 3 million and this 3 million, and then I would double it for the web store. And so I would probably say that Marvel Strike Force is making about $12 million a month, which extrapolating over the year is 144, but let's just round up for sake of argument to 150 million. So that's a lot of money. This game is still extremely profitable, and there's a lot of things going on with this. Now, what I find really funny, Star Trek Fleet Command makes apparently about the same amount, and they have a web store, from what I understand. So I don't know if they're matching Marvel Strike Force's income figures, but for the fact that they have like a sixth of the download numbers and like a third on iOS, that's kind of scary. I don't know what their monetization is like, but I know that their player base is low. Like, I want to say in the figure of like 80,000 players, like concurrently, and they're making a lot of money still. So that's still pretty surprising. Stumble Guys, we talked about that in a previous video actually, but that's just like the Fall Guys ripoff. And they're making decent money still and a lot of downloads. So there it is. Monopoly Go, 35 plus 40, 80, like $79 million on Monopoly for Scopely. That's just absolute insanity. Now, I wanted to kind of take a look at Marvel Strike Force's common competitors, which is EA Games, Electronic Arts, Capital Games, Star Wars Galaxy Heroes. Okay, so this is iOS. Capital Games. You have $6 million last month, but only 100,000 downloads now. This is interesting. So as far as iOS goes, this is still bigger than Marvel Strike Force. 90,000 downloads at $3 million. So that's kind of interesting. They had a huge spike. I don't know what's going on with Star Wars right now. If there's a reason why these numbers are kind of inflated a little bit. If anyone actually plays both, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And then we have EA Android. And so we have, again, $5 million, 200,000 downloads. So a little bit less downloads than Marvel Strike Force, but the numbers for revenue in-game for these app stores are still pretty solid. Now, it's my understanding that Star Wars does have a web store as well. For a while, I was pretty sure that Star Wars and Marvel Strike Force were basically neck and neck as far as income goes lately. And so this is a bit surprising to see that maybe Star Wars might actually be surpassing Marvel Strike Force. Now, again, I haven't really played the game that much. I played it a little bit in its infancy, but then I got really bored. We're not really going to talk about Lord of the Rings Home. God damn, that game is just... I feel like I need a separate video for that, because some of you might know that I don't even know where it is on the list. In fact, oh no, I screwed this up. Anyways, we're not going to be talking about Lord of the Rings Home. Oh, there it is. 300,000 for the month of last month for Android. Yeah, you guys know that I kind of made a second channel for that. I stopped doing that over the last month or so, 2 months maybe now at this point, and we're going to be doing something else on the second channel in the near future. Let's talk about Plarium and Raid Shadow Legends. So this is on Android, and they had 300,000 downloads and $9 million last month. Pretty solid figures still. Raid, I think, is one of the top competitors in this sort of that Raid type of games. You might have played other games like Raid. There's quite a few out there as well. I've actually been playing one lately called Dragonair Silent Gods. Some other MSF content creators are playing that as well. But Raid is like kind of where it started, right? You guys know the memes, the sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. I've done it too. So 300,000 downloads still at $9 million for Android is still pretty respectable. And the Apple is 100,000 downloads and 6 million. So add that together, that's 15 million. I'm pretty sure they have other platforms too. They have their PC client platforms and stuff. So this could be 15 million plus those other revenue streams. So definitely still higher than Marvel Strike Force, but interesting about where things are in the field anyways. Marvel Strike Force is still doing pretty well, and I think it's very respectable, like very profitable. You know, 150 million a year is nothing to scoff at. So I think the game is, and also just kind of looking at Star Wars and how this game is like, what, 2 or 3 years older and it's still kicking, and actually, in fact, it's doing a little bit better. It might be doing a little bit better than Marvel Strike Force at this point in time. Kind of tells you that as long as MSF doesn't shit the bed, that they can probably at least get another 2 or 3 years out of it. So we'll see how that things go. And of course, other competitors in the field might, you know, detract from it a little bit, but we'll kind of see as things go on. Basically, this video was me kind of just doing a little bit of a retrospect. I want to do this every 3 months, maybe every quarter, and just kind of do an update. And now that I have this video here, just kind of compare what we've done here today and kind of look at that in 3 months' time and see how things maybe have changed a little bit in terms of the numbers. So, yeah, I mean, I know this video is not for everyone. I think that the game is actually on the right track. The problem is, does the game have growth? Will the game grow? I don't think that it's going to. Like, I think that it's weird, right? Because the game is so old. I would say it's old, you know, and Star Wars is just even older. That at this point, that what we would strive to do is kind of maintain the player base, like make sure that there's no hemorrhaging, right? And so I think that they've done a good job with a lot of these quality of life things that they've added to the game over the last month or so to kind of help stem that. That any issues related to that is not going to be the reason that people quit these days. It might be other reasons, but I think that we're kind of headed in the right direction on that. So I just don't think that we're going to be like an explosion of growth of players. I don't think that's something we can expect. But, you know, maintaining around like the 300,000 range, because I think that's what we're seeing in a lot of leaderboard events and things like that where everyone's involved. I think that's what we tend to see right now. So that's the end of the video, everyone. And until next time, stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you all later and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Boilon, signing out.